This meeting to order. This is the Holyoke City Council's Finance Committee. August 30th, we have a set agenda, but first we are going to be live on Zoom, going to be recorded on Zoom, we're going to be streamed, we're going to be on public access TV and in person here in City Council chambers. We do have present in chambers to my far left, Councilor Jourdain, Councilor Pello, to my far right, Councilor Tallman, myself, Joe McGivern, and online on Zoom, member of the committee, Councilor Anderson Burgos. We also have in the chambers Councilor VACON, and online we have Councilor Jenny Rivera and Tessa Murphy Ramboletti. With that, just a motion to, because of the hybrid.
I'd like to make a motion to take a roll call vote that would, for all purposes of this meeting, would be applicable to all motions to remove an item from the table, place items on the table, package items, or suspend the rules unless there is an objection.
Second.
So moved. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, let's begin. Item number 1.
Don't you take item number 1 off the table?
Motion made second that we take item number 1 from the table. This was originally received by the Holyoke City Council on June 6th. It was laid on the table up until the first meeting in August, in which it was referred to the Finance Committee for the purpose of trying to undertake the request of the Councilor Bacon is the maker of the order, but there's a attached petition of undersigned citizens of Holyoke seeking a meeting with the City Council and have the question to vote for the CPA tax rate 1% or 1.5% placed on the November 2023 ballot. This goes on to request that there's an objection to the delay in the ability to vote on the tax surcharge, whether we support or don't support such a reduction. Off the table for discussion, all those in favor? Any opposed? As everyone knows, since this was filed, we have taken a vote as a full City Council, and we have, by a majority vote, we're in favor of placing such ballot on the November ballot. Since then, the Mayor Garcia did veto that. There's been a legal discussion going on as to whether the veto is a legal veto. That's not what tonight is about, but tonight is to see if we can entertain anybody from the City of Holyoke or anybody in the audience who wishes to express their opinions. And at this point, it would just be our duty to listen to them. Councilor Bacon, I'm not sure if you wanted to say anything.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just note for the record that I did receive some texts because people were trying to come into the meeting and we were sort of unavoidably delayed. So I'm not sure if they're still trying. It wasn't showing and they couldn't get in. So I'm not sure where they're going with it at this moment. They might be signing back in or not. I would say that it has been a frustration for those of us who support this initiative and having it be on the ballot, that it's been sort of a situation of the can getting kicked down the road and running out the clock on this issue. That's sort of the feeling that a number of people have about it. But nonetheless, whether people come into this particular meeting tonight, given the logistics, we have had at a number of the public speakouts, any number of people who signed the original petition, it being signed by well over 60 citizens, who have come in on Zoom, have come to the chambers on the microphone, and voice their opinions in this regard. Because we were never, given a clear answer, and the whole point of it was to try to get that. I appreciate the chair for opening this meeting in accordance with our charter and in accordance with the petition that was filed for the citizens. So I just want to give a shout out to the citizens who participated in a good government process relative to this, and thank you for opening it to the public.
Thank you. The chair would suggest that this is not a public hearing, but that we make a motion to allow anyone who wishes to speak to be allowed to speak before the committee.
I'll second that.
On that motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there anybody in the audience in person that wanted to express any comments on this issue? Seeing none, that's okay. To our administrative assistant, Jeff, I see some hands up from panelists. I'm not sure how you want to handle this. We can recognize them in the panelists, and you can allow them to speak, or you can bring them in. It's up to you.
Yeah, so far I see Steve Rosenbush has his hand up, so I'll give him,
Okay.
I'll allow him to speak, and then if more comes
Let me make an announcement. There's a few more people online in what's called the panelists. Anybody who wishes to speak on this issue, if you just hit your hand button, raise your hand button, we will be able to open up the mic for you and we allow you to speak. All we ask is that you give us your name and address when you come on, and then anything about CPA and the ballot question is open for discussion, and we're here to listen. So the chair will recognize Steve Rosenbush.
Unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
We can hear you. Welcome.
All right. Thank you very much. It was an ordeal getting to this point.
We had a little delay, but we apologize for that. But
No.
we started a little late, but we're here. And Steve, I think we know it, but can we just have your address for the record?
Okay. It's Steve Rosenbush, 1155 Northampton Street. I have spoken before, but today I would like to say something quite different. The CPA formula is rather complicated, and I don't think most citizens realize that the amount of money we get back from the state is determined by how many home resales there are. Now, I looked up 30-year mortgage rates today are at a 21-year high at over 7.5%. That means there are going to be very few homes sold, which means the state is not going to reimburse us the 50 cents on the dollar we got 5 years ago, or the 11 cents on the dollar I think we got now. I believe during the next year or two, we will be getting almost nothing. So why don't we just call it what it is? The CPA is just another tax. Why don't we just fold it in to the property tax and stop playing this game? Now, I understand Mayor Garcia wanting to postpone our ability to vote on this, so I looked it up. He did very well. He bought his home in February 2012 for $125,000. It's the last valuation I saw is a little bit lower than the average in Holyoke. I looked up his assessed valuation. So for Garcia, the difference between 1% and 1.5% is about $19. And that is nothing for a man who got more than a $40,000 salary increase when he came to Holyoke. Most of our citizens are not doing that well. A lot of the people I've talked to are really, really very anxious about their ability to buy food for their families. So I think the smartest thing for us to do, and I don't know how it's done mechanically, is to suspend our participation in the CPA for 2 years until the next presidential election, and at which point maybe there'll be a change in inflation and mortgage rates. Because right now, we're not going to see many property tax resales. Once again, the state promises one thing, as they did with the Quinn bill, and then they stop chipping in. The state isn't going to give us very much. I would be surprised if they give us 5 cents on the dollar. And frankly, I think I would trust our own family managers to spend their own money as they best see fit. And in most cases, it's going to be in buying food and diapers and those necessities. And that's, you know, that's all I want to say about this.
Steve?
And I hope that all the city councilors, whether or not they are in favor of continuing the CPA, realize that this is a rare opportunity for the city council to assert itself and say to the mayor, the city council is in charge of the city, not the mayor.
Steve, thank you, as always, right to the point, and we appreciate it. Chair, just note that online we've been joined by City Councilor Jose Maldonado. Is there anyone else? I see no hands raised. Is there anyone else online that wishes to speak? Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak?
So make a motion to close the,
It's not even a public hearing, yeah.
Second.
Motion made and second, the order has been complied with?
yes.
All right. Motion that is that the order has been complied with. Councilor Bacon, you okay with that?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
If there's no further discussion, we have to do roll call because we're hybrid. Councilor Jourdain,
Yes.
Councilor Puelo, Councilor Tallman.
Yes.
Councilor Anderson Burgos,
Yes.
Councilor McGivern, yes. Passes 5-0. Item number 2 was just placed on the agenda for informational purposes.
Receive.
It's the deadline. Motion made second that we receive. All those in favor, roll call. Councilor Jourdain?
Yes.
Councilor Puelo? Councilor Tallman?
Yes.
Councilor Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Councilor McGivern, yes.
3 is just from me, Mr. That can be just received as well. That
Motion-
was,
Motion to take item number 3 and receive it.
Motion made second. Item number 3 has been received from Councilor Jourdain. All set?
yep, all set.
Roll call. Councilor Jourdain?
Yes.
Councilor Puelo? Councilor Tallman?
Yes.
Councilor Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Councilor McGivern? And item number 4 was originally introduced by Councilor Jourdain. We've since received a legal opinion from the from the law department and from, I believe, an outside counselor, but wishes of the committee?
This is the one that I'm not sure the outside counsel discussed this issue. This is somewhat different. This is just making sure that all of the anti-aid amendment regulations are being followed, Mr. Chairman, and that when private parties are earning these CPA dollars, that the city actually has a process to follow through and actually put on the historic preservation restrictions that they're supposed to do on the deeds. And that I would like to make sure that we have copies of those things and that there's the appropriate follow-up. So, for example, if X company comes forward and says, I don't know, fix my roof, my slate roof, and I got $100,000 in CPA money to do it, and then they turn around and do something else, or they sell the property, or they don't otherwise meet the obligations that they said they were going to, that all the documentation is in place so that the city can then make sure that the historic preservation requirements are being protected, and that it's almost like our rights of reverter and that other issue, that we're doing the proper documentation and the follow-up, and that these deed restrictions are actually going on and being enforced. Because now that we've now picked 2 private entities. I believe we had the one on High Street recently the council did for some windows, and I believe we had the Girls Inc. one for some roofing stuff. I want to make sure that those deed restrictions are all being put on as they're supposed to be.
Question?
Thank you, and I appreciate that because I did remember, I read it that way. We do have on item number 5, a letter from the city solicitor, and I believe it addresses this. And with us is both Kathleen Deegan and Mike Bissonette. Chair would suggest we also take up item 5. And
So moved.
motion made second to take up item 5 for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Kathleen, welcome.
Good evening, councilors. Welcome.
I think you heard Councilor Jourdain, and I believe you have a communication before us. Would you care to go over that with us?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much. Yes, as Councilor Jourdain indicated, he was looking for information in terms of whether or not the city is complying with the anti-aid amendment. And basically, I mean, it's an interesting question. And what I did was I set forth the guideline, the legal guideline that the city would follow to make sure that we're not violating the anti-aid amendment. And the question that I would have, I mean, I could get the documents from the CPC and probably the Historical Commission because, you know, we do give CPA monies to preserve historical sites. And to go through, so I can answer the question that Councilor Jourdain has passed, you know, that he's submitted. One question I would have, and if I may ask Councilor Jourdain, Kevin, I'm not sure whether you had specific projects that you want me to look into, or whether maybe you just want me to start from when the city accepted the CPA and make it like a process and go through, because I don't have the agreements, I need to get them. So I would do that. I just need a little bit more information, if I can get it, so I can comply with your request.
Sure. Thank you for the question. So to my knowledge, there's only two that this would apply to thus far, because everything else is pretty easy. They're all public projects. So where we have now private entities, I now get, this invokes the anti-aid issue. And so I wanted to, one, make sure that the criteria that you lay out in your legal opinion is being meticulously followed, number one, so that they're meeting the criteria for anti-aid, i.e., you know, is what's going on all open to the public? Is it, you know, all the different criteria that's there in the community preservation statute and regulations sort of speak to how one qualifies to have this, like it has to be open to the public, it has to be something that's available, go through that. And I know, Kathy, you did a nice job about a year ago kind of examining a number of those criteria. So now, so that's one piece. That's the, if you will, the gateway in to get the money, right? Now it's on the flip side. Once the CPA board has approved it and the council has approved it, then the next question is, are all of the deed restrictions and all of the follow-up that the statute requires and those preservation restrictions, are those all being, with the public access agreements, and the regulations are pretty clear on all of this, that these things have to happen, and are the historic preservation restrictions being put on the deeds so that the city's rights to enforce all of our rules and regulations and state law regulations are actually happening. So, and there's only two projects that I'm aware of right now. So can you make sure that all that documentation occurred and was properly recorded so that we don't have any hiccups where 5 years from now something happens and somebody says, oh, well, you know, we didn't record the appropriate paperwork. So I want to sort of, one, make sure the process is being reviewed on the front end, and then the B is the documentation on the back end. So that's the question, please.
Okay, I understand. And what I can tell you, I do know that there are preservation restrictions, there are separate documents, and those get recorded. But, you know, I can certainly, you know, check the deeds. And with the two projects you're talking about, I can confirm, I can go to the registry of deeds and make sure. But when I'm asked to review them, which I have reviewed a few, you know, they're saying, look, we need to get this recorded. So I believe they're doing that, Councilor. But I can check on the two projects that you had mentioned just to double check and make sure that that happened.
Would you be kind enough to send us copies of those documents so that we can review those? I'd be interested to see, to make sure that they understand the mandatory repayment provisions, if there's any violations of these rules. I'd like to see signatures that everybody's signing off on those understandings.
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So through the chair to Councilor Jourdain, 2 questions. One, if we don't have an ordinance relative to complying with this, would it be automatically the duty of our law department to be looking into each of these recommendations from CPA? Or alternatively, should one of our committees be asking for that review in cases such as this before it's brought to the council for a vote?
Great questions. My observation was that the CPA, and I think one of our takeaways from last year and the work that Kathy did, was that we need to be invoking the law department in on the front end during these reviews. So if people are applying and the committee's saying, kind of think this might be something we want to approve, before they say yes, they should make sure they run it by the law department and see to it that everybody qualifies for what's being requested. I think that is good prudence, because what did we find out in the last instance? $152,000 was approved and $152,000 was not legally allowed. Okay, so therefore we need to make sure in the future that we don't have that again. And what I noticed as a shortcoming was they weren't consulting the law department, and Kathy now is a good resource because she's dived into this and become knowledgeable in this area. So I
Okay,
think
so on the front end.
so the front end
CPA
is
would
that,
ask,
and
at
then
the back
once
end-
it's all signed off, I got to assume I got to assume the committee is not doing agreements and signing and recordings and all of that. So I think they'd have to consult with the law department to make sure those things are all being properly done.
And Mr. Chairman, as a follow-up? Joe?
Councilor Bacon, yes, please.
So in the case where it's granted, could council treat it sort of like a special permit and say, we approve the funding subject to the completion of the documents or whatever?
Yes, I think so. And I don't think we need and I failed to answer this portion of your question, which is, do we need local ordinances on this? I don't think so, because they're empowered under the regulations and the state law already to sort of acting as our local committee under 44B. And effectively, we are following all those regulations, and they spell out that if a city were to adopt these provisions, you have to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm just making sure that X, Y, and Z is actually happening.
Okay, great, thanks.
Kathleen?
Yes, councilors, I just want to indicate that after the Girls Inc., the CPC has been coming with the preservation restrictions and the grant agreements for us to look at, and I've done some of them. Most of the ones I've approved thus far there's some public projects, fixing City Hall, certain historical buildings that belong to the city. I think we had one dealing with making repairs on City Hall. So I just want to let people know that has been happening after the Girls Inc. And we do see the preservation restrictions. So I can get you those documents. And, now that we're going forward, obviously I see an issue. We'll say, look, there's a problem here with the anti-aid amendment statute. So I just want to know that right now, after the Girls Inc., we've been reviewing those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion?
I have a suggested motion.
Yes?
On number 4, Mr. Chairman, I'd recommend tabled until we get it back from Kathy. And on 5, I think we can just receive her opinion, which she's given to us. I'll second it.
Motion made and second. Item number 4, that remains on the table while we wait further information from our city solicitor. Roll call, Councilor Jourdain.
Yes.
Councilor Powell.
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
Councilor Anderson Burgos.
Yes.
Councilor McGivern, yes, remains on the table. And item 5, that
Received.
received, you want to keep it in committee for
Yeah.
future?
Yep.
Motion made and seconded that we just receive item 5 and keep it for future reference. Roll call, Councilor Jourdain?
Yes.
Councilor Puelo? Councilor Tallman?
Yes.
Councilor Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Councilor McGivern, yes. That remains in our archives. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kathleen. Much
You're
appreciated.
welcome. You're
Motion,
welcome.
motion to take item number 6 off the table.
Second.
Motion made and seconded that we take item 6 off the table for discussion. Introduced under myself on behalf of Mayor Garcia, a request for transfer from sick leave buyback $121,879 into the line item captain of the police department budget. On the motion to take off the table, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Under discussion, we do have Chief Pratt with us tonight. Chief, are you with us?
I'm here. Yep.
Chief, welcome. If you could, I know we had a preliminary discussion at the full city council meeting, but we do have some questions, but could you walk us through the request for transfer and update us on the captain's status and situation right now in the PD?
Okay, so, yeah, back in the budget time, this was in the budget, and then somehow, I don't know, the mayor brought it up at the budget hearing. My understanding now is that at a second budget hearing, which I was not at, is when the order came in front of the council, and maybe that's some of the confusion as to why people didn't remember it. But from the buyback to the captain to replace the captain, currently I'm down 6 supervisors with a 7th one about to be activated by the military. So I'm just trying to get some people promoted and backfill some of these slots to help us out.
Just to keep me up to speed here, we have, in the budget, we had 4 positions that we talked about, and you were gonna go down to 3 eventually? No?
No, I think what happened was the mayor originally was thinking about going to 3, decided to stay with 4 based on the fact that we had 4. He told me that he was going to put it back. There were back and forth with, I believe, Tanya to do that. I think when he was in front of you at my budget hearings, when he brought it up, he explained to me that the order came to the council at a future budget or council meeting that I was not present at, and that it was passed already. So when the budget came out and it wasn't changed, he told me that it was basically just like a clerical error, like that it didn't get done, but that it had all been voted on to be done. So I moved forward, and that's why we were moving to do what we did. As you know, we had a captain retire, and I'm down another captain, and I'm down 4 sergeants, and like I said, a 5th one about to be activated by the military, probably in October.
We do have Mayor Garcia with us. Mayor Garcia, welcome online with the hand up. Would you like to address this?
Hey, councilors. Yeah, just briefly and to summarize, when we were doing our budget hearings at our budget meeting with the police department, and I don't know if you'll remember or not. I mean, the video's there. I went over the recording just to make sure that I wasn't crazy. But I made note that in my budget, yeah, I funded 3 officers, 3 captains. And then we got to that issue, that same problem we had. And it was my understanding that we weren't going to have a captain. But it turns out that I shouldn't be assuming anything until folks resign from the position and just go forward as planned until actual resignations or however folks decide to resign actually happen. And so at that time, we kind of, like we did middle of the calendar year for
Mayor, we lost you for about 20 seconds there. Can you just repeat the last two sentences?
Yeah, so, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, so in this second budget, we kind of did that practice we didn't want to do again, so I made note that we're fixing that following council procedural orders. So instead of just fixing it at Finance Committee, I resubmitted another order to the council and made note that that's coming, which is to justify that position to be sure that we're fully funding that line item of positions that are currently off-filled. And it wasn't until probably the last budget hearing where the order finally presented itself. It went to the council, sent to committee. It's just that we never made that change in the actual budget when it was voted on. And that's what happened. I'm driving down there. I'll be down there in like 5 minutes, by the way.
Thank you. Discussion, committee,
I have some questions.
Councilor Jourdain.
Chief, just so I understand what happened here, we budgeted for 4 positions, correct, or 3?
I budgeted for 4, the mayor then budgeted for 3, and then I believe corrected it back to 4. It just didn't get changed on the budget when you voted on it.
Okay. So what the council approved was actually only 3, not the 4?
Correct.
I see. Okay. Well, that makes more sense now. Okay. I was under the impression we had budgeted for 4 and that the intent was to have 4, but apparently this is saying there was a Scrivener error, so apparently there was some mistake in the budget. Okay. So just so I understand it correctly though, but you've been operating with 4 since, or at least theoretically 4, right? Since July 1st or no?
Yes.
Okay. So, and just so I understand where all the deck chairs are on the deck, we have one captain who is on leave, so that's an empty seat at the moment. Being paid, mind you, but that's MIA. And then we have one person who retired who didn't take a buyout, right? They're still being paid out of the role, so that position's going to remain vacant, or is that person getting a buyout for the whatever time?
That's the position I'm trying to fill.
I'm sorry, say that again?
That's the position I'm trying to fill.
Okay.
He left, but he left at the end of July,
Okay.
and that's why I was trying to do that earlier.
Okay.
You know, I just thought it was like a clerical error and it would get cleared up. That's why I didn't. And my understanding was the council had sort of already voted on this, so that's why I thought it was okay. I mean, I don't mind coming back again. It's just it's delaying us a little bit, and it's not just the captains. Like I said, I'm down 4 sergeants, about to be down a 5th one. By making this captain's position, I'll be able to promote and backfill at least one of those spots immediately as well, which will help us because we're, short there as well.
All right. So we're going to go to 4 if we approve this, we're going to go to 4 approved positions, but actually 3 bodies.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And did the one that retired, did we do buybacks or whatever is that how he was paid, or is he going to continue to draw a captain's salary out of this line?
He's gone. He's gone. He's gone out of this line.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Very
gone.
good.
He's
Okay.
retired, officially gone, paid off whatever we owed him.
Okay. And you had
Live in the
sufficient,
dream.
you had sufficient money to do that already from what was in the budget, correct? We didn't have to, because I didn't see a transfer request or anything for that.
Right. Yes.
Okay, so that was already all
Yeah.
covered. Okay, very
Yes.
good. All right. All right, so now I'm a lot warmer to this in light of the fact, because I thought we had budgeted the 4, which is why I wanted this to go to committee to clear this up. In fact, it turns out that when we voted, there was really only 3, but we were under the belief that there was 4, and now you're fixing it. Okay.
Correct.
All right. Okay, that makes me feel a lot warmer to this. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve the transfer.
Motion made and seconded that we adopt approval of the transfer. With no further discussion, roll call. Councilor Jourdain?
Yes.
Councilor Puelo? Yes. Councilor Tallman?
Yes.
Councilor Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Councilor McGivern, yes. Passes 5-0. That will go to the full city council next Tuesday for adoption.
Thank you.
Make a motion to take item number 7 off the table.
Motion made and seconded to take item number 7 off the table for discussion, which is introduced under myself on behalf of Mayor Garcia. The request for a transfer from capital stabilization, $19,450, into professional engineering services, $19,450. Off the table for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. This is through the DPW engineering department. Our superintendent of DPW, unfortunately, at the last minute, called in and will not be able to be here this evening. The chair of the commission is not going to be here this evening. But we do have, for the current moment, our city engineer, Riz Baker, with us. I'm kind of hoping I could say for more than the current moment, but we won't get into that. Chris, would you like to come in? I don't know if you can address this one. No?
No.
Okay. This is a request by Carl Rossi. The mayor approved it. The mayor's going to be here any minute. I'm not sure if he's still online.
So there's no one to speak to it at the moment, or?
Yeah, why don't just table it until
Table.
the mayor gets here?
Motion to table
Motion made
7.
second to table until the mayor gets here. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Motion to take item number 8 off the table.
Motion made and second to take item 8 off the table for discussion. This may be the same thing.
Are you on this? Chris, can you do number 8 or not? This is refuse trucks? No. Oh, all right, motion to remove item 7 off the table.
Second.
Back to item
Back
7.
on
All those
7.
in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? So moved. Chris, come on in. The mayor's going to be here in a minute, and he'll back you up.
So this order is for $19,450, and this is the quote that I received from a survey company in order to do the surveys for Linan Drive and Richard Eager Drive, which all I can imagine is due to some clerical error. It never made it through council when a portion of Richard Eager made it through, but none of Linan, but all the streets around it. So this is an instance, I know we talked about this previously in council, but this is an instance where this is an unaccepted roadway, but is up to the city standards and can easily be accepted. So we just need to have a professional land surveyor survey the road so that we can have a street acceptance plan.
Thank you.
I make a motion to
Speaks
be
for
adopted.
itself.
I make a motion to be adopted.
Well, second.
Motion made and second that we adopt for approval of this transfer request. If there's no further discussion, roll call. Councilor Jourdain?
Yes.
Councilor Puelo?
Yes.
Councilor Tallman?
Yes.
Councilor Anderson Burgos? Councilor McGivern? Yes. Thank you, Chris.
Mr.
Chris.
Chairman, I just want to thank our city engineer, Chris, for his work on this, and we're going to miss you.
We're all going to miss you, Chris, but we're not done with you yet this evening. Why don't we hold off on 8 until the mayor gets here?
Okay. Motion.
And maybe Chris can just a quick update on item number 9.
Motion to take item number 9 off the table.
Motion made second to take item number 9 off the table. Chris, this is has been around for a little bit, introduced by Councilor Bartley, and it's just an update for what funding is available or in the works for pedestrian safety signals at Hitchcock and Martin Streets. Those of us who have been around know this street as incredible dangerous history in terms of accidents, including a school bus accident. But we certainly would appreciate any update on this.
Sure, I don't have a real update, but I do know that I spoke with the counselor about getting a crosswalk in that location. We unfortunately had a failed bid for the general traffic calming measures to do things like speed humps and raised crosswalks. So that was unfortunate. So we don't have a contractor to actually perform any work like that at the moment, but we're going to try to put it out to bid again.
So the out to bid wasn't just for Hitchcock and Martin, it was for a number of projects?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know we have one for Westfield Road in front of Blessed Sacrament School. Yeah, so
That
that
was all
one's,
that was in that bid.
oh geez, okay. Yeah,
Which one? All of those, yep.
yeah.
So,
Did it
Main
go-
Street, the whole thing.
Did it go out to rebid, or you're trying?
Not yet.
Not
It was just last week.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
any further discussion?
Motion's been complied with?
Motion has been
Second.
complied with, we'll make the report, and the whole city council will know, and then we can go from there, and thank you, Chris. Don't go too far, because,
The mayor's here.
Why-
Want to do number?
Mayor?
Okay. Motion to take on number 8 off the table?
Motion made second, to take item number 8 off the table for discussion. All those in favor, any opposed, so moved. Mayor, this is a request from Capital Stabilization, $48,045 to refuse repair and maintenance vehicles. Carl had to call in at the last second, unforeseen, he could not be here. He did send us some information, email. Just to get us all up to date, this is to repair what's used as both a dump truck and a plow in the winter. The chassis is good, the vehicle is good, it needs a new engine. I'm not sure if he told us how many miles on it, but you obviously approved the request for the transfer. I don't know if you wanted to add anything and/or answer any questions.
Yeah, I mean, Councilor, that's pretty much it. We did talk about replacing, and that's a longer-term strategy because it's not like we can go to the lot and pick our favorite dump truck and have it by this winter. And so Carl's plan currently is to do the repairs that these vehicles need to get them ready for the winter. If he uses what's in his current budget, it'll eat it right up, and he'd have anything to respond to other things accordingly. So we thought that this would be the best short-term fix as we bring a plan together in the very near future to replace these old vehicles and get some newer ones. But
I'm pretty sure these vehicles run close to $250,000, over
these are the
200,000.
dump trucks,
Yeah,
$250,000 or so.
yeah. So it sounds like a lot of money to repair, but on the other hand, if you keep something that's worth
I
a
think we just
$250,000
ordered
going,
one,
I
too.
guess it's something for consideration.
I agree, Mr. Chairman. I would, if I may.
Councilor Jourdain.
Yeah, just a couple of things I'd note in the data package that we received. This truck only has 71,000 miles on it. It's a 2010 vehicle, so, I think their idea is a good one here, which is to replace the engine. And as you said, these are really, really expensive. So I think there's still a lot of life left in this truck. So thank you for
A
trying.
little bit. And I think that I think we just ordered a dump truck from a recent.
It's not going to be until sometime in December,
There you
so it's
go.
going to be close.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to be approved, Mr.
No, second.
Motion made second that we approve. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none online or in chambers, roll call. Councilor Jourdain?
Yes.
Councilor Powell? Yes. Councilor Thomas?
Yes.
Councilor Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Councilor McGivern, yes. Passes 5-0. That too will go to the full city council next Tuesday.
Motion to take item number 10 off the table?
Second.
Motion made second, we take item number 10 off the table for discussion. This will be the second time we've discussed this request in the Finance Committee. It's a request to bond for the amount of $10,500,000 and pay for the Holyoke River Terrace Sewer Separation Project, including the payment of all costs incidental and related to within the limitation, all costs therefore defined in Section 1, Chapter 29, C of General Laws. The language is very typical for bonding. As we know, this is for our mandate from the Clean Air Water Act that we separate or address all CSOs. CSOs are combined sewer overflows that happen in older cities, but happen in the city of Holyoke because of when we were built, most everything just went into one sewer, whether it was stormwater, whether it was sewage, and ended up in the Connecticut River. The city has done a lot to correct that problem. The Berkshire, we are still paying for, the Berkshire CSO separator. There's been some other projects, and the next project that's probably in line to be completed, I don't want to take all your thunder, Chris, but will be the River Terrace and so forth. Discussion now, though, is, well, I'll stop there. This is about bonding, borrowing, and money as much as it is about the issue. One more thing, just to remind everybody, this mandate not only is an unfunded mandate by the federal government, but at a point in time, if they so choose, and we are not making progress on this unfunded mandate, they can start fining the city of Holyoke up to like $5,000 a day. Our city engineer, Chris Baker, you have the floor.
Okay. I'll just give a brief overview of why this project is necessary. I think many of you know that we have a long-term control plan for the control of CSOs to the Connecticut River. The objective of that long-term control plan is to get an 85% reduction in the volume of CSOs going to the Connecticut River. It won't result in all of the CSOs being dealt with. We will still have combined sewers when we finish this plan. So many of the projects that have already been done, you know, we've separated Appleton Street, we just finished Jackson Street, the Mosier Street projects, so the flats in South Holyoke have all been done. So this next phase of the project is for the River Terrace area. So that discharges down the hill off of River Terrace, so there is a combined sewer overflow there. This project is broken into two phases. There's 21A and 21B. 21A is taking care of the roadways. It is Jefferson, George, Hillview, Meadowview, and then 21B is going to be Central Park Drive and Mountain View Drive, that northern side of the catchment into this outfall. So this project is included in a consent decree that we settled with the EPA earlier this year, and we are obligated to finish this. 21A has a construction deadline of December 31st, 2027. It's estimated to be about a 2 construction season, or probably more like 2.5 year project. So it is important that we move forward. Construction's only getting more expensive. There's really no option to not complete this project because it's in the settlement with the federal government and Mass DEP. I know that there's questions about, you know, how this impacts the enterprise fund and questions like that. In the packet, I did prepare a 3-page memo that gives you kind of the history of CSOs. It talks about the projects that we've already completed. It provides the timeline and the projects and how much the estimate is for the projects that have yet to be completed. So there's 3 projects left. After the 2 phases of River Terrace, the final project will be the Springdale Park area to separate that area of the city. And then the long-term control plan will be completed. And as far as at least the CSO obligations under the consent decree, those will be adhered to. On the final page of the memo, as you mentioned, there are stipulated penalties in our settlement agreement if we do not meet the deadlines that have been outlined. So that's what we're up against right now. So we're currently at a 90% design level. We've been approved. We're on the intended use plan for the state revolving fund loan, which is a low interest 2% loan. There is some hope. We've appealed to Markey's office, Senator Warren's office, Neil's office for some kind of earmark. I think the max on that was $2 million last year. I'm not sure that there's now a maximum, but we're pursuing with whatever representatives we can to be able to get an earmark from Congress to help offset the cost of this. So we're asking now for the $10.5 million, which is the full cost of the project, If we do in, the next year, especially if we're in the middle of construction or before construction starts, if we're awarded any kind of earmark, we just will not spend that loan money, so we won't be on the hook for it. We don't have to utilize the full appropriation of the loan. DEP, the full application for the state revolving fund with our full design plans are due in October. On the design side, we're on target for that. It's just a matter of sending them. I mean, we're hoping to get approved by the city council for this loan, sending them that language and that approval so that we can maintain our, status on the intended use plan and we don't get replaced by another community. I guess one more thing I wanted to add about this current moment, which is that the bipartisan infrastructure law bill does have a loan forgiveness program up to 9% for disenfranchised communities. Holyoke has previously been awarded that, so that money, we don't know what will happen to that money in future years, so that's another thing that we may get 9% loan forgiveness during this round.
With
Yeah, I
No,
do
so-
have.
no,
I have
go-
some
no, go
extra.
ahead.
I
No,
do want to
finish.
hand out. So I know there was questions, and I didn't include it in the memo, but I did want to include to the council a projection. This obviously has tons of caveats on it. No additional projects. Basically, if nothing changes, I've projected the estimated portion of the sewer rate that's being paid. What part of that is our debt encumbrances? So, can
Yep.
But obviously, this is maintaining the schedule that's set in the consent decree. Assuming that we do get 9% loan forgiveness, assuming that we get 2% SRF loans, there's a lot of assumptions in here, but
Chris, you are all set for a second? Just a kind of where we left the discussion the last time we had this item. First of all, thank you for the detail, and thank you for your work and making, look, is kind of a complex, if not complicated, process, a little bit easier to follow and understand. And I think, I said it at the beginning, most of us, and I think everybody in the city understands the issue of combined sewer overflows and the mandate. And I think, quite frankly, it's about funding that we are more worried about. I think everybody wants to stop untreated sewage going into the Connecticut River, regardless of where you live. If you're part of the Connecticut River Valley, you certainly understand the importance of that. We have a long-term plan, and those words are not new to us. A long-term plan started even before we did the first dollar of work on CSOs. Going back to a study by Ty and Bond and the issue, which we will not get into tonight, about the management company. We came a long way, and we had, the first project was, I think, handled 50 or a little below 50% of the work that was identified that needed to be done. And as you just stated tonight, you just updated us on other projects and the next bigger project that has to be done. Are you saying that in order to keep the federal government happy, that we have to take a vote on a bond that we don't need for maybe 2 to 3 years out? I mean, that's...
So in order to begin construction on the project, we do need the bond to be appropriated because we get reimbursed by the state. It's just that we don't start paying the loan back until the construction's completed.
Okay, maybe I missed. What's the projected construction date?
So if this loan is approved during this cycle, which we're on the intended use plan for, the full application goes in later this year and construction will begin in the spring of 2024.
Okay. All right, that's a little bit closer than the way I've been looking at it.
That's faster than required. The required construction completion date is December 31st, 2027.
Correct?
Right. You're required to have the design completed by July 1st of 2024, right? Which you already have the design done.
90% design.
90%, right. So we can sort of almost check that box. The key is we have to complete construction by December 31st of 2027, and it takes at least 2 years to complete the construction. So theoretically, sometime in 2025, you would have to actually physically start. That would be sort of the latest.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Is there any further discussion?
I have some questions.
Okay, Councilor,
Yeah, sure. Linda.
Councilor Bacon.
So my question is about where this bond would have to sit, because I know that we've had a lot of discussions about the enterprise fund being self-sustaining, but we've also had a lot of discussions about things that are infrastructure for the city, such as, I don't know, various projects that are in one portion of the city, but they're covered under the general tax rate. So I'm just wondering, is there any legal reason, or is there any reason other than by our choice, whether it could be bonded through the city side or the enterprise fund?
No, I don't believe there's any reason that it has to go into the enterprise fund. That's historically what's happened because they've been sewer separation projects.
Right.
But you are correct. Half of it is essentially drainage, and so we don't have a stormwater utility here. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Jourdain.
Right. So Linda obviously took one of my questions, and my
That's why we got to go first.
yes, she's right on it. Tonight, if we vote for this, we're not committing to what pot of money that we pay. It's just that we're gonna have a bond to do the work, right? I mean, are we locking ourselves into that this has to be paid out of the sewer fund?
No.
Right. Just that we're committing the city money to do it. And obviously, if it's required work, we have to do it. Let's do it. Obviously, with all the other caveats of we're not happy again, the mandate, now maybe they come up with 9%, even though we've talked ad nauseum about the fact that the state Clean Water Act says, we'll give you up to 55% of the money and then that wasn't funded. I won't rehash that whole discussion, but I don't think it should be automatically a given that all of this stuff is paid for out of the sewer fund, is my point, okay? That yes, if we do it, we don't pay for the roads out of the sewer fund. So where the water goes from the road, this is stormwater. That's really what's at issue here. And the question is, I'm getting concerned about this, and overall, this is just another end run around Prop 2.5, that we effectively can start packing all these projects into the sewer fund and not pay for them out of the general fund, general obligation bonds, because we have caps as to how much we can tax. So if we start putting as much as we possibly can into the sewer fund, then we get to tax to the max on the property tax side, general fund side, and then we can just keep jacking people's fees up through the roof. So this way, and there is no legal limitation on how much you can charge for sewer rate increases, to my knowledge. And you can classify all these things, and I do get concerned that we're going to, it's really creating a system of unlimited taxation, effectively. And that gets really pricey. Whereas if this was paid for out of the general fund, and if we want to say, well, half of what we do with stormwater would have to have been handled anyways, whether you have a road or you have a combined sewer overflow, maybe we could, I guess at the most, we could argue 50-50, right? But I don't think it should be, I don't take as an assumed that 100% has to be paid out of the sewer fund, because the impact to the citizens is dramatically more taxation ultimately on them than is really required. And that concerns me, because there are systems and protections in place for taxpayers in Massachusetts under Prop 2.5 that you can only tax up to the levy ceiling. If we keep burying all these projects into the sewer fund, and we bury street sweeping, and we bury MS4, and we bury every time we're doing catch basin emergency repair work, we're burying that into the sewer fund. That's just stuff that is just an ability of the city to keep taxing more and more and more, and we're calling it sewer fees when they don't have to be paid out of that fund, is my point. And these things are not in and of themselves necessarily tied to the operations of the sewer plant. That's my concern. These are, what are you doing with your stormwater runoff? And that's as a result of having roads that everybody uses. And so we don't have to solve that problem tonight, but it's a conversation we need to have as a city, because I'm sensitive to it. These are big, big ticket items, and these are big bills. So I appreciate the amortization table, and effectively, what we're signing up for is this for, this would be 20 years, Chris, on your proposal? Yeah. So it's $600,000 a year, just for the listening audience. $600,000, if we vote for this, we're agreeing to 20 years, $600,000 a year for 20 years, starting in fiscal year 2028. Now, I would ask you a question, though. If you start next year, you start a year earlier than required, then it would be theoretically, as soon as it's done, so 27. So we're actually agreeing to start the payments a year earlier, just so we're aware of that.
Only if it's completed early, which will never happen.
But so 20 times 600, 12 million. Luckily, we're getting the 2% interest or whatever it is, so that's helping us on the interest payment. What I can tell our friends in Washington is $600,000, and then 2 years from now, another $700,000. They pass these laws, and then where's the money? 9% of $1.3 million a year from the residents of Holyoke. It's easy to sit in Washington and hand out money. Like I say, they're dropping missiles on people at $600,000 a pop, okay? Yet that's one annual bond payment here. And the question is, when are we going to start rebuilding America? That's one of my concerns. Why is it we have to fight so hard to get the money for these things when I'm seeing all this money shipped overseas, or in foreign aid and all these other different things of what Washington wastes money on? These things need to become a priority, more than 9%. And that's not a problem for you, Chris, but it's one of the problems that we need, Markey and Warren and Neil to address. So I do appreciate you sending that package. If we've legally obligated to do it and the work does need to be done, then we have to do it. So it is what it is, I guess, at this point. But one of the things that I want us to solve in the next 2 years that we need to figure this out is, where is this going to be paid for? And I just want it said that, because nobody gets to vote. Residents don't get to vote. This is effectively By dumping it all into the sewer fund that isn't, it's almost a backdoor tax override, okay, that they don't get to vote on. Because we can pile it in, we can classify it as sewer related, and we just keep taxing them in the sewer fund, and they don't get to vote on that. But it actually transcends Prop 2.5. So I'm sensitive to that, and that's a conversation the city needs to have over the next 2 years when this is done. But the work itself, it does need to be done. So thank you for your homework on this, Chris. Thank you.
Further discussion?
So I'll make a motion that it be approved.
I'll second.
Motion made and second that we adopt the request for the purpose of bonding $10,500,000 as written and as explained here this evening, but more important, for a future project known as River Terrace Sewer Separation Project. Under discussion, I will vote in favor. I want to thank Chris. I think I know now why you're going to Northampton, but so what kind of numbers. And I want to thank Councilor Jourdain because that was the most incredible explanation I've heard since 2004 about some of this issue. And I think Mayor Garcia's ears were wide open because mine were, that we have a lot of discussion over the next 2 years because it's the debt load's going up and isn't going down until we get, well, we'll all be gone by the time the debt load goes down.
Yeah.
But our kids won't be, so it is important and well said, it's a mandate. And I came in here thinking 2027 was the target, but if construction can start, then the federal government's going to be happy with us in 2024.
Yeah.
Is there any further discussion? Be a roll call. Councilor Jourdain?
Yes.
Councilor Powell? Yes. Councilor Thomas?
Yes.
Councilor Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Councilor McGivern? Yes. And Mayor Garcia now wants to talk.
Yeah.
Mayor?
Just a comment for each of the councilors. It'd be helpful, and I know Councilor Jourdain has helped also in his role as councilor. If each of you can just write a letter to the congressmen and the senators highlighting this issue, just asking for some continued support through these earmarks, that'll go a long way. I know Jourdain's had some conversations with Neil. I've had some conversations with Neil, council president's conversations. The more pressure we can add in this community to prioritize the need to take care of the problem, I think the better support we might be able to get down the line. So,
Thank you, Mayor. If you could perhaps draft up a resolution from you and us combined and let's submit it. I'm sure all of us would vote for that unanimously, and we can send that together, 14 of us, and I couldn't agree with you more.
I just want to add one name to that petition, or one name to the those that are going to receive the petition, and that would be the President of the United States.
Yeah,
No, right.
absolutely.
No? Thank you.
Motion to take item number 11 off the table.
Motion made second, we take item 11 off the table for discussion. Introduced by Councilor Jourdain that the Board of Public Works, DPW Director, City Engineer, City Auditor, Treasurer, update the City Council Finance Committee regarding recent sewer breaks and the sewer enterprise account itself. Off the table for discussion. All those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? So moved. Kevin, as a maker of the order, do you want to?
Yeah, just real briefly, at the request of Mary Monahan and some of the leadership at the DPW, they had requests to discuss, sewer breaks, what's kind of going on with some of these different things, and just kind of give us the council an update and a debrief. So whatever information you'd like to share, we would appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if this may have been related to the broader issue of delving into the sewer enterprise fund, the finances, the Veolia contract. It may have stemmed from that. I'm not exactly sure. As far as the sewer breaks go, that is one of the variable costs of the Veolia contract, and it is just a straight pay-through reimbursement to Veolia for work. I know you mentioned about catch basins. It is catch basin repairs, but the majority of the cost actually is in our aging infrastructure and the sewers that are routinely failing in different spots and creating sinkholes in our roadways and alleyways. So that's the majority of the calls that occur.
Do we have any, let me ask you this. Could you prepare some sort of report that maybe gives us over, say, the last 3 years? I know Carl and Mary gave us a statistic that the average was, the cost was about $235,000 a year in quote unquote emergency repairs. So we need to allocate that. And it should be noted that I believe we have $1 million quote unquote line of credit with the vendor, and we're required, we sort of draw that down and we're required to replenish that annually. But maybe, well, we could just rest on the 235 number, I guess, if that's.
It's 17 years of data. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, that's a pretty reasonable
That's a pretty-
number. It
yeah.
does obviously bounces around. Last year was particularly bad because of
Okay.
the deep break of 30-inch sewer at Peck
Right.
School. It was about 20 feet deep, so that
Right.
that was very expensive. But that's a rare thing
Right.
that happens.
Okay. So we need to consider, as we're thinking about the budget, there needs to be sort of a 235 there that we need to kind of plan for these type of eventualities. So, okay.
Yep, but I'm happy to give you in the Veolia reports that they provide to me monthly and then
Okay.
annually, there is a listing of how much they spent, what contractor they used, and
Okay.
what the repair was. So there's spreadsheets of that for every year.
Okay. If that's not too much trouble, Chris,
Not at
you
all.
could send that along. Other than that, I think this order's been complied with, Mr. Chairman. It basically boils down to the summary number is the 235 a year that we as a council need to be considering for these emergency repairs. So I think we're good.
Any further discussion? If not, the motion is the order's been complied with. Roll call vote, Councilor Jourdain?
Yes.
Councilor Pueblo?
Yes.
Councilor Tallman?
Yes.
Councilor Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Councilor McGivern, yes. That will be referred out to the full city council next Tuesday. We have one more motion to make this evening. Thank you, everybody.
Motion to
favorite
adjourn?
And motion made and second to adjourn.
Second.
All those thank you, Councilor Anderson Burgos. Loudest second I've heard all night. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? We stand
Thank you,
adjourned.
gentlemen.
Yeah. Have a
Good night,
good-
everybody.